Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's fake. 'Cause
Have you ever heard of this show called The Loud House? It's a series where a middle child, Lincoln Loud, has to survive in a family of 10 sisters. Yeah, that show. Well, what if I told you that I found an unreleased dark episode? Well, it happened to me a few days ago, before writing this. It's a bit of a long story. I was surfing the web and came across this website of salvaged media known as Digital Fossils. It was a website that carried strange, lost pieces of media that were either phone calls, security footage, images, deleted scenes of movies, and more. I grew an interest with these strange and lost pieces of media, so I was curious enough to check out this website. The links were ordered as fossil and then followed by an uppercase word or short phrase with a few numbers. These words or phrases were sometimes nonsense and unrelated to the website entry, but some of them did make sense. For example, fossil dog 807, fossil help 9482, and fossil don't look 370. Some of the entries on the website were slightly disturbing. For example, a recording of a cat playing with a dead bird, and a news report of a child going missing on an abandoned playground. I don't know how the website recovered these pieces of lost media, but it had almost everything that it could get its hands on. However, I stayed silent about that. I didn't work on the website anyway. However, after scrolling down the other entries, I found something that caught my eye. Fossil Loud 11. It was rather interesting. It had a word that reminded me of the ones from earlier that were randomized, but it had 11 after it. It reminded me of Lincoln Loud, the same 11-year-old boy from the show I just talked about earlier. After I clicked on the link, I saw this description of the entry. The description said the following.
This is the lost episode of The Loud House, which is titled as Enough is Enough. It was meant to be the finale of the 3rd season, but scrapped after its production was done. Chris Savino, the creator of the show, will be planning another season 3 finale at the moment. However, this replacement is reasonable. This episode was scrapped for being too disturbing and dark for the series. If you are a fan of The Loud House, we must tell you, this is no joke. Viewer discretion is advised.
I was curious. I wonder why this would be for a show like The Loud House to have such an episode like this. So after reading the description, I decided to download this episode. Once it was done, I started to play the episode. When the episode started, the usual intro played. Nothing was wrong so far. However, in the end, nobody went to the couch to watch the TV. It acted like they weren't there as well, so Lily's poo-poo wasn't present. Another thing that was wrong was that the ending logo was tainted with the color of pastel red instead of orange. This website wasn't joking around. There was definitely something wrong with this episode. The title card had a black background with white fog flowing across the left of it, with centered text saying, "Enough is enough." The bottom bubble below showed who made the episode as well, which was the same as the first 2 seasons. The music was a low, rumbling noise that was a little ambient, something that you may hear in a horror game. The episode began with the outside view of the house, as it sometimes did. The music was absent, like the beginning of Brawl in the Family. It cut to Lincoln watching the television instead of playing video games like he usually does. He was just chilling. Don't you just hate living with 10 sisters? Well, sometimes I do. Lincoln started to speak. I saw his smile turned upside down. But on rare occasions, I go a little too far. I wish that they would just leave me alone, but I can't hurt them. They're my siblings. I want to love them, but the things they do are like the setbacks to me. Lincoln sounded a little more serious than normal. "Hey bro," Luann said as she appeared next to Lincoln in the next shot. "What did the platypus say before leaving the bar? Put it on my bill." Lincoln frowned as she was laughing. "Yes, Luann, pretty fun. Do you want to smell my flower? I'm not falling for..." Luann's flower sprayed water on Lincoln's face before he could finish what he was saying. "Okay, Luann, do you want some of my banana cream pie?" Luann said before slamming it on Lincoln's face. I wonder why the description said that this episode was too dark. Luann was making so many jokes that it made the episode more stupid than graphic. Lincoln face-palmed in dissatisfaction. "Stop, Luann, you're not funny." "What do you call a boy who's completely white?" "A flower boy." Luann laughed for a bit, but one shot later, Lincoln slid his hand off his face, revealing his angry eyes. "Enough is enough," Lincoln said furiously as she grabbed Luann by the shoulders. "Wow, nice grip, bro. You shoulder work out at the gym." Luann laughed at her little joke. Then something happened. It took me back to the shot of Lincoln. It felt as if I was hit by a train. Just after, Luann laughed at her little joke. Lincoln slammed her head against the wall, bruising her and knocking her out. A low, ambient tune played in the background. Lincoln gasped and stared at the crack in Luann's head, then at her purple, bruised, unconscious body. Then he looked at his hands in fear. What have I done? I've never done something like this before." He looked back at Luann. "But this made me feel so alive. For some reason, I've never felt this good before. I know just what to do." It cut to black for 3 seconds, transitioning to Lori texting on her phone, possibly to Bobby. "Hey Lori, can you drive me to the comic book store?" Just go do it yourself, or get your mom, Lincoln." Lori left her room, which I assume was to go to the bathroom, and Lincoln looked at her phone, which she left in her room, glaring as he was planning his next wipeout. One shot later, Lori was seen walking into her room when she saw him with her phone. "Lincoln, let go of my phone right now!" Lori was hit on the head by her phone as it broke with the shattering of glass. Lincoln walked over to her body and looked down at her. "This is for smashing my VR console, teenage brat," Lincoln said with silent anger as it cut to Lori's lifeless body. Her phone was shattered, with bits of glass scattered across her face, being cut across some places. She was bleeding all over her face on where she was cut. I was shocked to see the middle child go on such a killing spree like this. Why was this made? I thought to myself. It cut to black yet again to change to a different scene, taking place in the backyard. "Hey Lincoln, wanna wrestle?" "Sure, why not, Lynn? I'll bet I'll win this time." I knew this wasn't going to be no wrestling match, but I kept on watching to see where it would go. As Lincoln was wrestling with Lynn, he got behind her and shortly after cut to a close-up of Lynn's eyes. "Come at me, bro!" Lynn's anticipation was cut short when she not only widened her eyes, but gagged. I knew something went wrong. A dark tune was playing in the background. Then, after a while, it grew louder. It cut away from the close-up to show Lincoln choking his 13-year-old sister from behind. Not only that, but the animation quality changed to a style very similar to that of King of the Hill. It looked so shocking that it didn't look as cartoony as before. I watched as Lynn gripped her brother's hands trying to break free, but it was useless for her to escape. It cut to Lynn's point of view as she was turned around face to face with Lincoln. This is when I felt like I was going to faint. Lincoln had a menacing, cold, and possessed look on his face. His eyes were bloodshot, his pupils were larger, and his skin was a tad bit darker. The animation at this point went back to the normal style, but his face was still highly detailed. I could even see in Lincoln's pupils the reflection of Lynn being choked. I was shocked as her vision went blurry and her eyelids opened and closed. By the time Lynn had her eyes shut, it was done. It was over for her. The gloomy music stopped, and the next shot went to Lincoln sitting in the dark with Lynn's body next to him. A different low tune played. Lincoln looked at his sibling's body with a pleasured look on his face. After 30 seconds, he spoke. "Sleep tight, Lynn. You're free." I got chills after he said those words. Lincoln had snapped. He was no longer the man with the plan like he always is in the show. Now, he was a murderer, a corrupted soul, something pure evil. As he looked up and wondered to himself, "I wonder who's next for the axe." With a planning smile, thoughts came to him of what he was going to do next. The video suddenly turned black and white, then played out all the murders. It started with Lincoln pulling Lenny closer to him with a pair of scissors in his hand, and glared at Lola with a bat in his hand. He was seen smashing Luna's guitar on her face, and about to set Lucy on fire. After that, the episode cut to black. A line of white text faded in after 5 seconds. 1 week later. It was clear that 1 week had passed. It was nighttime again when the text and the black screen faded out. Lincoln was staring at the bodies of his now dead sisters, which were under his bed. To name a few of their fates, Lily choked on what I assume was a small toy, and Lola was cut in the face multiple times. I don't want to get into detail with the rest of the sisters. Lincoln looked around and started to speak again. My job is done. All I need is one more. But who is it? He asked himself. Yes, it must be me. There is something that I must do, Lincoln said as he looked down. The screen cut to black for 10 seconds, then showed the most horrifying thing. Lincoln was now seen hanging from the ceiling. His back was turned against the camera. I was bewildered. All of the Loud siblings are dead, all because Lincoln had snapped, and it all built up to this moment. Lincoln had to kill himself in order to join his sisters. Just after a silent 12 seconds, Luann slowly got out from underneath Lincoln's bed and panted heavily. It was a relief that she didn't die. Like I said way earlier, she was knocked out, not dead. Her wounds were still present. She was a bit pale, and more blood dripped down her face, but not entirely. She looked at Lincoln and back at her sisters, which were now lifeless corpses. This is no joke, Luann said softly as she witnessed her first mass murder. She stood for a moment before limping outside, possibly to tell her parents what happened. Afterwards, the camera panned slowly to Lincoln's hanging body. Then the screen cut to a black room with Luann crying. She was in pain, not just from her wounds, but from witnessing all her siblings dead in front of her. Then she grabbed a needle and started to stab her eye out. Then she grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed herself in the stomach. There was blood flying everywhere. Then Luann fell to the ground, dead. It faded to black, indicating the end of the episode. The credits had an eerie ambient tune playing, and the background was still the same white fog moving left like the episode's title card, but it lasted longer. As the credits stopped, the screen went black, and an echoing high tune rang for about 12 seconds. I felt a chill run down my spine. After hearing that, the episode was finally over. Questions still rang through my head. Why was this made? What happened that led the creator, Chris Savino, to make this? This episode had to do something about it. I just knew it had to. I tried doing some research on this certain episode, but nothing was found. I looked at the time and noticed that it was almost past midnight, after at least 25 minutes of useless research. So I decided to sleep till the morning. Days passed and I haven't been finding anything about the episode. What's worse is that I've been having nightmares of that episode. especially of Lincoln standing there with his cold, angry, bloodshot eyes and overly detailed face, doing nothing, just watching me as I slept. Ever since the nightmares, I've always turned on my lights. I didn't want him to strangle me, slamming me against the wall, or whatever he could do to end my life. I didn't go back to digital fossils for a week because of that episode. That didn't mean that I was done with it, though. I just hoped that I would someday find some information about this episode. Like, who suggested the idea for this episode? However, here was the real question. How did they get away with making such an abysmal episode?